In this video, we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing rational expressions. Right? And remember, rational expressions, that's just another word for fractions. Right? So we're really going to be talking about multiplying and dividing fractions. Right, before we actually get to the multiplying and dividing, I just want to do a quick recap of what we've done so far with fractions. Right, so far we've simplified simple fractions like this and also more complicated fractions like this. Right, so here's what we've done so far. Right, we've talked about how to show our work with this. Right, we've talked about using factoring. Right, so if we were to factor 6, that's just the same thing as 3 times 2. And if we were to factor 10, that's just the same thing as 5 times 2. And so this could be rewritten as 3/5 times 2 over 2, 2 halves, right? But what's this? What's 2 over 2? Well, that's just 1. So 1 times 3/5 is just 3/5. Right? So that's the way to show why 6/10 is equal to 3/5. And we just apply the same idea to these more complicated ones. Right? So what we want to do is factor. So I'm not going to show all the steps for the factoring, but to factor this numerator here, we can just use our magic x technique. Right? So that would factor as x minus 4 times x plus 2. And then the denominator can be factored with difference of squares. So the denominator would just be x minus 2 times x plus 2. Right? And the purpose of doing that is so that we can rewrite this way. This is the same thing as x minus 4 over x minus 2 times x plus 2 over x plus 2. But again, what is this equal to? This is equal to 1. So 1 times this would just mean our answer is x minus 4 over x minus 2. Okay? Alright, so we're going to apply that same technique to multiplication of fractions. Right, so we'll do a simple one with just numbers, and then we'll do one with more complicated expressions. All right, so first thing I want to do is just remind you of when we multiply fractions, we can just multiply straight across. Right, so 3/7 times 10/6, we can rewrite this as 3 times 10 over 7 times 6. Right, and we can factor this. Right, so this would be 3 times, well, 10 is the same thing as 5 times 2. And we can factor the bottom. 6 we know is 3 times 2. So we can rewrite the bottom as 7 times 3 times 2. Okay? And I just want to remind you, when you multiply, order doesn't matter. So 3 times 5 times 2, that's the same thing as if I had written 5 times 3 times 2. Okay? All right, so we can rewrite this like this, right? 3 over 3 times 2 over 2 times 5 over 7. Right? And again, we have a 1 here times 1, so our answer is just 5/7. All right, we're going to apply that same technique to a little bit more complicated of a problem, to this one. All right, so we have this fraction times this fraction. Okay? And before we start simplifying, let's do some multiplication, or factoring. All right, so I can factor x squared minus 25 using difference of squares. That would just be x minus 5 times x plus 5. Okay, and let's see. Why don't I factor this part first? Next. So that, I can pull out a greatest common factor. I can pull out 3x. So that would be 3x times x minus 5. All right, let's talk about how this would factor, 14x. Well, 14 is the same thing as 7 times 2. So I could rewrite that as 7 times 2 times x. Okay, now how about the top here? I have 6x cubed. Well, 6x cubed, that's the same thing as, well, 6 is 3 times 2. And x cubed is just x times x times x. All right, so this is a little bit messy, but I think you can see what's going to happen here, right? Let's find out all the places where we have a 1, right? Well, I have x minus 5 over x minus 5, right? right here, x minus 5 over x minus 5. So this is a 1. Right, let's see, where else do I have a 1? Let's see, I have, right here I have a 3 and a 3, right? So I've got times 3 over 3, right? I also have 2 over 2. Right here I have an x and an x, also have an x and an x here, right? So you guys get the idea. All right, so what haven't I accounted for? Okay, so I still have, let me get my pen here. So I still have an x plus 5 left on top, and an x. And on the bottom, I still have a 7 left. Okay? All right. So if it helps you to keep track, you know, you can kind of mark off which ones you've used already. Okay? But what would our final answer be, right? This is 1, 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 right? So our final answer is just x times x plus 5 over 7. All right, so now let's do some division with fractions. Okay, so how do we divide fractions? Okay, so when we divide fractions, I hope you recall that what we do is 3/5 divided by 7/10. That's the same thing as saying 3/5 times 10/7. Okay, and now we can just use the same technique we've been doing, right? This is 3/5 times, let's factor the 10, that's 5 times 2. So this would just be 5 over 5 times 3 times 2 over 7. Right? Here again we have that 1. So it's 1 times this. So our answer is just 6 over 7. Okay? All right, so now we're going to take a look at number 6, a little bit more complicated, but really it's just the same idea. Okay? So let's do the first part together. Okay? When we divide fractions, right, would be the same as if it were written this way, multiplying by x squared minus 25 over 4x cubed plus 12x squared. All right, so I want you actually to finish this on your own, okay? So please pause, do the factoring, and finish simplifying, okay? So please pause, and then you can unpause and check your answer. All right, let's check in, see how you guys did. All right, so here's the correct factorization. The first one would factor as x minus 5 times x plus 3. On the bottom, this would be 3x times x plus 5. And then on the top, this would be x minus 5 times x plus 5. And then on the bottom, this would be 4x squared times x plus 3. All right, so let's look for all the places where we have 1s. Right, so I have an x plus 3 over x plus 3. What else do I have? I have an x plus 5 here, x plus 5 here, so that would just be another 1. All right, and I think that's it. So what do I have left? I have x minus 5 times x minus 5 on top. And on the bottom, 3x times 4x squared, I can just multiply that out. That's just 12x cubed. Right? So here, this is 1, this is 1. Right? So then my final answer would just be x minus 5 times x minus 5 over 12x cubed. If you like, you could rewrite this as x minus 5 squared. But you don't have to. Okay? So I would accept either this or this.